I'm about to give you all some incredible free game. I am going to walk you through the entire process of how I just got one of the best transformations of my coaching career so far with Graham right here. And if you follow me on Instagram, you'll have seen that I posted this transformation and people in the comments couldn't actually even believe it was the same person, nor could they believe that this transformation was actually achieved in just 4 months. So I'm going to show you the exact process, training, nutrition, all of the online coaching protocols that I used in terms of how we got Graham from dad bod to looking ridiculously jacked and unrecognizable as he was approaching 40 years old. So the first thing we do with any client who reaches out is always just have a little chat with them, right? And when Graham first started, he was depressed, he was out of shape, he just felt lost with his training, like he just had no direction. In fact, here's his actual words about how he felt when he started.
I'm 39, I'm going to be 40 next year. I had to look at myself in the mirror. I was unhappy with my body. I was bloated, I was overweight, tired, lethargic, probably a little bit depressed as well. And I wanted to get, so I knew I needed to take some action urgently. So I reached out to Leighton, seen him online, I'd seen his videos, and I thought this is the guy that's going to help me get to where I need to go.
Now, as with any new client, the very first thing I did was take him through a comprehensive screening process. So I had him fill out a questionnaire on my coaching platform to give me a little bit more detail on his current position. And I got the answers to some really important questions that would help guide all of the decisions that I would make over the course of this transformation. In his sign-off forms, he had said his priority was to increase his muscle mass to body recomp, so that is essentially staying around about a similar weight whilst changing how you look, and having more energy in general. He was and is a dad, he is a nurse, and it was really important for him to have that level of vitality just so that he could carry himself better as a man, as a partner, and as a father, but also over into his work life as well. When he sent me his initial pictures over, as you can tell, like in these pictures, he just looks like the majority of guys, right? He's got a lot of body fat in the stomach area, a fair bit of body fat in the lower back area, and also around the chest as well, which just contributes to that kind of, he won't mind me saying this, but quite doughy look that just isn't really impressive when you take your top off. The first protocol for me then was to run him through our priming phase. Because he only had a small amount of experience in training and he was in a really high stress job, obviously he was a nurse and he's a dad, our priorities were to get as much training footage sent over to me as possible and to deep dive into his nutrition and his meal timings too. Now, for his actual training split, I prescribed a 3-day per week full body split where every session takes no longer than 45 minutes. And if you'll know me, you'll know the majority of my coaching style is based around that lower volume but high intensity kind of dynamite approach. And we kept exercise selection really, really simple and only rotated it once throughout the course of the entire 16-week transformation. The reason for doing this is if you want to get strong, we need to have reliable, predictable indicators of progressive overload, i.e. we need to stick to the same exercises and progress on them week on week. And if they are working, there's absolutely no reason to take an exercise out of your program in favor of something else. The only reason I actually rotated them for him was because I knew in the long term he would be going alone again eventually, and I wanted to get as much exposure to different training methods and ultimately different movements so that I could then analyze his form and so that he knew what he was doing when he did actually decide to go it alone as well. Now, from a feedback perspective, he was really, really on the ball. Okay, he was sending me like 4 to 5 training videos per week. At the beginning, I think he was probably sending me upwards of 15, which is great. I absolutely love having clients who are so invested in the transformation and in the training in general and who are just interested in getting feedback. That makes my job really, really enjoyable. When he would send me those over, I would give him a few small tweaks on his exercise selection and tips on gauging his reps in reserve. There was plenty of times where he would send me some footage over and I would just be like, that is not going to build you muscle. You need to make sure you are pushing at least an extra 3 to 4 reps here, or you need to change your foot position on the leg extension and really start incorporating a pause at the top of the rep. Just little small things like that that over time would accumulate into a big bundle of knowledge that he kept in his head regarding training that he could just carry with him for the rest of his life. Now, the lower volume approach that we took with him is really, really efficient, but only if we squeeze every last drop out of each set. That is the trade-off that we have. Where we have a higher volume approach, where there are, say, 6 days per week, you've got more chances at attacking a set. So if you have a bit of a shit set, it's not really a problem. Whereas it becomes a bit of an outsized problem here when we do have that lower volume approach. So we really worked on getting his mentality right going into the gym and the conditions that we would like him to be in when he goes into training. With coaching, I like to dive into these intricacies. I was asking him what he's doing in the hour before his training, what he's doing after it, how he turns up for it, what he's eating before his training sessions, because we just want to make sure that everything is optimized for him to go in, block the world out, and just push when it comes to his lifting. Over time, his footage started to show signs of a real push, and as we got his final pictures, it was really, really cool to see that in the training session we had before it, his ability to push himself to failure had just increased tenfold. Like, there wasn't one time I had to pick him up on a set or tell him that he'd stop too early, because he was just going at it. He was just training like an absolute animal, which is fantastic to see, considering that that was the first time I'd actually ever met him in real life. And the fact that we had transferred so much knowledge over to someone who I'd never even seen before was really nice and gratifying for me as a coach as well. Now, given his job as a nurse, we then had to consider the total allostatic load that we were going to allocate to Graham, right? Because when you have a lot of stress everywhere else in your life, as a nurse, as a parent, it means that we haven't got much room to take on other high stress things. And one of those things was nutrition. So for Graham, we devised him a really, really simple plan. I just basically got him to send me over screenshots of what he was eating on a day-to-day basis. And I noticed that his diet was great. It was full of rich, varied whole foods, but I noticed he was splitting his meals up into 3 meals individually. He'd also expressed that he was suffering a little bit of hunger on the initial calories that we give him. So I gave him a really strict protocol of just dropping his meals down from 3 a day to 2 a day, but where we could have 2 really calorie dense meals to feel a lot more satiating and just get rid of that food noise that's going on in your head while you're in work as well. I also noticed that he was using cooking oils. I could tell he liked to cook because of the ingredients that he was using. And he was also tracking all of his green vegetables, which most beginners do because they feel like they've got to track absolutely everything. But the feedback that I gave him was this: my clients don't track their green veg, particularly on a fat loss phase, because when we are in a fat loss phase, I want to incentivize my clients to get as much goodness into their body as possible. And no one ever failed a fat loss phase because they were eating too much broccoli, right? So I give them free rein to eat as much veg as you want, minus the starchy veggies, potatoes, peas, corn, sweet potatoes. All of those things are quite high in sugars and therefore high in carbohydrates. So we do actually need to track them because they will make a tangible effect to your fat loss. Now, his meals, like I say, they were spread across the day, and that's absolutely fine. But as I knew he was working in a high stress role, I wanted to free up as much time for him as possible, and spending a little bit less time eating each day, i.e. going from 3 meals to 2 meals, means you've got to do a little bit less cooking, a little bit less cleaning up, and less time eating your overall meals, which means more time to be a dad, more time to allocate to your job, and less things to think about. When we have a prolonged fat loss phase like this, that was over the course of 4 months, we can start to suffer from decision fatigue if we have to make a great deal of decisions per day. For me, the easiest thing for anyone to do is to literally just simplify everything. So pretty much eat the exact same thing every single day for your first meal of the day. You might have a little bit of variety for your evening meal. And then on the weekends, we had a lot more flexibility. He is someone who is very social. He likes going to the Everton match. And he likes having a pint as well. We didn't cut out alcohol at all. I didn't stop him going for meals out. We just employed a little bit of smart thinking, some calorie banking, and made sure that he made the right choices on the day and just didn't go too crazy when he was at those social occasions as well. Throughout this entire transformation, we only altered his calories once, and that was in the last few weeks, right? When your clients as a coach are nailing absolutely everything you ask of them, A coach won't really need to constantly manipulate food given that the client is progressing as expected. When we were looking at Graham's weight loss, he was dropping around about 0.8 kilo per week consistently, which is on the higher end. Again, we could have went with a slower approach for this. I just feel like when I get a really motivated individual in, it makes sense to hammer fat loss, i.e. to really go at it and attack it while motivation is high. And then we can start to see that snowball effect of this is working, I'm going to keep doing it. And that just gives the client a little bit of extra motivation to continue to push on, right? He was losing that weight until about the 20th of July, which was a month before we ended his cut. And at that point, I just dropped his calories by 150 per day. He was actually getting to a point where he was like, oh, I'm a little bit disappointed with this week. The weight hasn't moved so much. But I like to follow something called the LAP when it comes to a fat loss phase, and that's the logical adjustment process. So if after 2 weeks your weight has stayed the same, we either increase our number of steps, our total daily activity, or we will decrease our food. The low-hanging fruit for us here was to decrease food because he wasn't really feeling that hungry, and increasing his activity would have just been another time strain for him, which would have been obviously really difficult considering his circumstances. Now, he wasn't deterred, he continued to push on, and we actually observed a pronounced fat loss effect in those final few weeks. So from the 20th of July up to yesterday, which was the 19th of August, so around about a month, he dropped from 64k to 61.5, which in the final few weeks of a fat loss phase, considering we didn't go below 1600 calories and he was only weighing 60 kilo, that's really, really fucking cool. Not once did I ask him to do extra cardio. He wasn't on the Stairmaster, he wasn't running, he wasn't doing anything other than lifting weights, walking and managing his food. That's it, okay? There are plenty of bodybuilding coaches out there who will get you to hammer cardio and who do want that extra level of let's get him super, super, super lean. As you can see from the pictures that we've got here, Graham is extremely lean. Could we have pushed this further? Absolutely. Would it have had a outsourced detrimental effect on his life? Yes. How long would he held that condition for? Probably the best part of a week. I don't see the point in pushing clients to bodybuilder levels of leanness when they're not getting paid for it, they're not stepping on stage, and ultimately they're just going to rebound and compare themselves to that physique that they had a week ago and start beating themselves up immediately after the cut ends. We got him to a position where his physique was sustainable, where we knew we could bump him straight back up to maintenance calories and he would still look the exact same as long as he continued his training program, which he is going to be doing. And that was really, really profound for Graham. Like, I think he was made up with the fact that he didn't have to go to that point where he really, really had to start digging for that kind of small benefit that most people probably wouldn't have even seen anyway. Now, there was one hiccup in this transformation, and I remember in one of his check-ins, Graham mentioned to me that he was letting other people's comments about his body get him down. And if anyone's ever done a fat loss phase before, they will know that when you start to lose weight, mums are really bad for this, but they'll be like, you look too thin, you look too skinny, you need to get some food down you. And Graham was starting to get those comments from people. And obviously, as a guy who's around about my height, he's like 5'9", and he was 60k, he is a slight guy. Like, there's no denying that. He's not this big, broad, massive butch fella. And so when he's wearing a t-shirt, he probably is going to look a little bit thin. That's not the end of the world, okay? Like, and what's also not the end of the world is other people's comments. When people make comments to you about how you are looking during the fat loss phase, usually they are protective, i.e. it's your mum wanting to make sure that you're not sick, because most of them don't have an understanding of bodybuilding, of weight training, of what you look like when you're actually in shape. But the other thing is, it's your fucking body at the end of the day. Like, what you do with your body is your choice, and you need to let other people's comments kind of just bounce off you, like, as long as you know you're doing the right thing and you're improving your health overall. And we had this hiccup, I think, when he was around about like 66 kilos, so he was probably at the point where he was just about to approach real leanness, where his muscles would pop, but he just felt a little bit skinny in t-shirts. This is an really important phase to get through and navigate, particularly for guys, because most people get to that point and go, fuck it, I'm not losing any more weight, I'm going to bulk, and then you just put a bit more fat on and then they look even worse, and you just end up stuck in this endless bulking and cutting cycle. The real ability of being able to push through in a cut and get to the levels where muscles do start to pop and you actually look bigger than you did 4 kilo ago is massive. The same thing goes for a bulk as well. You need to get to the point where you can push past that area of, oh, I'm starting to look a bit chubby, and get to the point where, oh, actually, I'm starting to look quite thick, like my muscles are really, really filling out now, and like this is a massive thing for me. The final thing that I wanted to mention was Graham's utilisation of our identity shift system. And I am a big believer in the fact that there has to be a mental transformation before there's a physical transformation. Like there has to be this vision of the identity that you would like to step into, because the reality is you are not in that new identity when you start, otherwise you wouldn't be in the shit position that you are in right now. I knew Graham's job was high stress and those circumstances were high stress. And so implementing some of the things we've got inside the identity shift, like the frame shift system and the 15-10-5 method, which involves reading, meditating and journaling every single day, just for a small period of time. I knew that that would take us out of those high stress conditions that can typically impede our decision making and move us into a position where actually we're looking after ourselves, we're lowering the level of stress that we have, which means we're holding less water, we're more likely to see results on the scales, but also mentally we've got the capacity to actually see things clearly and make rational decisions and not make stupid decisions on a whim that snowball into you just completely ruining and derailing your fat loss phase. Now, the fact that he got into this shape is largely down to that. And when I put this transformation up, there's probably going to be people in the comments who are like, steroids, because it is actually unbelievable the fact that someone can go from that picture to another picture in just 4 months. I used to see similar coaches' transformations when I wasn't as good of a coach and be like, you've got your clients on the juice. But actually, it's not the case. Graham is 39, he is 100% natural. I've never trained a client who is on steroids before because I just train Gen Pop. I don't really train bodybuilders. But honestly, if I looked at him on another coach's page a couple of years ago, I would have thought he was on the juice too, which is probably the highest compliment that you can pay someone. So by the time we got to the end, it took a total of 4 months. Graham had lost 12.3 kilos. He PB'd in every single lift. He was lifting literally double or triple what he was lifting initially. And even though he was in a deficit, he managed all those nights out, trips, social events, and yeah, he actually managed to pile muscle on, which most people don't think is possible in a deficit. But we just need to create the right conditions for mass building in that deficit, which, yes, it's not optimal compared to when you are bulking, but can you build muscle in that phase? 100%, okay, 100%.
And probably within a week, I was already lifting much heavier than what I was already thought I was capable of doing, and I knew very early on that if I stuck to the program, I would get the results I wanted.
So the reality is that we only synthesize a very small amount of muscle mass over, say, like a 3 or 4 month period, and so the energy requirements of actually adding more tissue are not that great. So even when we are in a fairly decent deficit like that, we can see from his training log that he was PBing, he was lifting more and more each week. And that is obviously the precursor to building more size. And we can even see from the pictures as well that he clearly built size in his shoulders, in his back and in his arms as well. So for all the naysayers who don't think it's possible, it absolutely is. You've just got to put that hard graft in. And not only was the fat loss phase super successful, but actually he didn't really have that much of a difficult time doing it. By anyone's account, this was a pretty easy fat loss phase. Like, he got to the end of it. Yes, it was challenging. Yes, he then went and got a big Italian meal after it and had a flat white instead of drinking some black coffee. But the reality is he probably could have breezed the final few weeks of a fat loss phase as well. We just decided that we didn't actually want to take him there, but we've now put him in a position where he can enjoy the rest of the summer on 2200 calories per day. He's got that little bit more leeway. He is going to improve in all his lifts now that he's got a surplus of energy. We've upped his carbs, and he will spend probably about a month here before we end up pushing him up for a slow, lean gaining phase. So if you are inspired by Graham's transformation, and obviously you like the way I've just explained everything there, then I might be a good fit for you as a coach. So there are links in my bio which explain how you can get in touch with me, how you can book a call to set up some discussions about one-to-one coaching, and plenty of other free things and resources that I have got available as well are going to be linked in the description too. So if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe if you want more client case studies like this. And I hope you all have a boss day. Like I say, reach out to me for coaching if you want to get as fucking jacked as Graham.
It's been the best thing I've ever done.
What would you say to someone who was on the fence about signing up?
Don't hesitate. Give him a call, because you will not regret it. If you put the work in, if you do exactly what he tells you to do, you will get the results, no doubt about it. If I can do it, anyone can do it.